Welcome back. You've joined us right here on the India development debate. It's high drama in Parliament over Rafale, quite literally. You had Defence Minister Nirmala Sitaraman today tearing into the Congress for making false allegations against the 58,000 crore rupee fighter jet deal. In a marathon speech that lasted a good 2.5 hours, she attacked Congress President Rahul Gandhi, even going to the extent of calling him a liar. The Defence Minister said that the deal worked out by the NDA government was at least 9% cheaper than the UPA's price. She's also accused the Congress for its callousness in dealing with matters related to national security, adding that the Manmohan Singh government made sure the Rafale deal doesn't take off for political reasons. She attacked Rahul Gandhi for calling Prime Minister a chor, even as she invoked the humble family background of the Prime Minister and herself. Well, Rahul Gandhi quick to fire back, accusing Sitharaman of running away from the core questions and instead relying on histrionics to win the sympathy of the House and the nation. The drama over Rafale is our topic of discussion on the India development debate in this edition, and for that, let me welcome our panelists for the evening. We've got Syed Zafar Islam, spokesperson of the BJP. Mohammad Khan joins in from the Congress Party. We've got Bharat Karnad, he's a professor of national security studies at the Centre for Policy Research, and retired Air Chief Marshal S. Krishnaswamy is here with us as well. Gentlemen, very good evening, and thank you so much for taking the time out. Mohammad Khan, let me begin by asking you. Your party president is seeking a probe against the Prime Minister for alleged corruption and for weakening national security by giving the Rafale contract, as he put it, to his friend. The offset policy, to be perfectly clear, is not cast in stone, and Dassault has time till October to let the government know who it is that it decides to pick as its offset partner. Does the Congress have substantive proof to implicate the Prime Minister?
Absolutely, ma'am. In fact, we have been raising this issue repeatedly on the back of facts and not opinion. When we went to the CAG late last year, we took with us 30 documents substantiating each and every one of our claims, and we have put those out in the public domain so anyone can verify them. However, the government has refused to acknowledge a single one of these. The second thing we point out too is that we believe that Parliament is the appropriate forum where this matter should be investigated. And as the BJP will attest, every single time they've asked for a joint parliamentary committee, we have always agreed because we had the courage of our convictions, whether it be in Augusta Westland, Bofors or any other deal. Now, here's the thing. This particular party, this BJP, is wary because they have been caught. And I'll tell you why they've been caught, ma'am. They've bought fewer jets for a higher price. Mr. Jaitley asked, where did you get this number from? We played the clip in Parliament of where he puts the amount and divided by the number of jets. Then they say that we accuse them falsely of removing HAL. And Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman in a 2.5-hour speech actually quoted a falsehood. She said HAL and the government never had a relationship. But we know for a fact that on 13th March 2014, the government of France, Dassault and HAL entered into a work share agreement, a detailed work share agreement. The CEO visited the factory. Negotiations were held, and the foreign secretary actually said before Modi ji went to Paris that the deal was in its final stages with HAL. Then they talk about the fact that Mr. Anil Ambani has not got offsets, etc. And I'm sure Mr. Islam will repeat that fact. But Reliance Infrastructure Limited has put out their annual report, which Rahul ji quoted in Parliament today, where they quote the figure of 30,000 crores, where they talk about the 1 lakh crore life cycle cost of the contract. So I don't know why they're advocating for a particular private company which has no qualifications other than a proximity to the Prime Minister. We will continue asking these questions because public money is at stake. You bought fewer jets, you bought them for a higher price, you replaced an 80-year-old experienced company with a company formed 15 days after. We will ask questions in Parliament, on the streets, and we will name and shame you until every person knows.
Syed Zafar Islam, please do respond to that. You know, from the Defence Minister to the Finance Minister, you have made it amply clear that the deal negotiated by the NDA is better than the UPA. You know, just to quote the Finance Minister, he said on the floor of the House that the cost of the basic aircraft was 9% less than what the UPA struck. He went on to talk about how the cost of weaponized aircraft was 20% less than the UPA's. But quite honestly, without revealing the price breakup in confidence maybe to the opposition, how can you expect anybody to take these pricing details on face value? And I'm asking this because the first salvo on Rafale was actually fired on pricing.
See, first of all, Mr. Muhammad Khan is also a lawyer, and he is insulting the Honorable Supreme Court, because the matter was in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has put to bed everything. All the speculation so far has been made by the Congress party, the opposition parties, and Mr. Muhammad Khan, what he was talking about. The speculation about the pricing, we agreed to share the pricing details, everything to the Honorable Supreme Court, and they have verified it. And I must tell you that the Congress party has never showed interest in price, knowing the price, but they just want the breakup. And everyone knows that the price which we have negotiated, we have confirmed what price we have given for the platform cost. The platform cost is 9% lower than what they had negotiated, and with the weaponry details, with the missiles and the other technology which has been put in place, that's something which we cannot share. That should never come in the public domain. Something which they want to know. I think we will never compromise with that. We will never compromise with the national security, and that's why we are reluctant. We have stood with our stand so far, and we have always spoken that we will not be able to share. But when Supreme Court asked for such details, we shared in confidence with the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has verified every single thing and made everyone knows the judgment of the Supreme Court. They have very clearly stated that all the speculation made by the principal opposition parties and other petitioners are absolutely baseless. They have maledified intent and nothing beyond that. Now let me tell you, today the 5 questions which has been posed by the chief of the grand old party, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and everything has been responded to with the facts and figures by the Honorable Defence Minister on the floor of the Parliament. I mean, it should be debated, that's where they have been responded. But Congress party knows that they cannot talk on fact and figures, because they have always dealt with the middleman. They are looking for a middleman. It was a stunt by the Congress party which has backfired and which is backfiring on them, and that's why they are repeatedly talking and targeting people who have nothing to do with. Let me tell you about HAL as well. HAL, in fact, their own ministers during UPA time, 2013 October, the minister at that point in time, Mr. Tharoor and Mr. Manish, both were part of the committee of the Parliament Defence, Defence Committee, and they have their observations about HAL is something which everybody should know. What they have stated, they are talking about the incompetencies and something which the HAL has not been able to develop over a period of time.
Okay, Mr.
Today,
Islam, let's just give
when we know that the national security is paramount importance for our government, as something which we needed to deliver, which we have done.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Islam, I will just come back to you. If we can just give an opportunity to the other panelists as well. Air Chief Marshal Krishnaswamy, you know, you've argued in the past that since the standard of preparation of the Indian Rafale is sensitive and different from those supplied to others, the Parliament could debate the price in a secret session as permitted by, you know, the rules of procedure and conduct of business in the Lok Sabha. What do you think is preventing the government, or for that matter even the opposition, to come to an agreement and debate it behind closed doors?
I'm not very familiar with the process and procedures in Parliament. But I'm aware, I was told or I read about it and informed that there are provisions that if there are national securities involved, there are security clauses in contract. The government and the opposition can discuss this in a kind of a secret session which is not open to the public. I believe there is such a provision. I'm not an expert on that, and that's what I queried, but it has not been answered, and therefore the parliamentarians should answer that, or they should explore that, but that has been totally skipped. But other than that, I think there is a consensus from the government and the opposition, as well as it is. I think I read on the newspaper about Supreme Court verdict that they all agree that the aircraft, the product that we have finally chosen is good, and there is no debate on that. It's all about how much you paid for it or otherwise, and the aircraft comes with complex weapon systems. But I must take a minute of your time. Like I was the evaluation pilot for Mirage 2000 and subsequently on the Sukhoi 30 as well. So when we acquired the Mirage 2000, at that time the papers were full to say that we acquired an aeroplane without the weapons, and the weapons were contracted well after the so-called the aircraft deal was signed. And the weapons obviously came, possibility is that it would have been more expensive than had it been acquired along with the aircraft itself. And we were chided to say that Air Force bought a aircraft is only good enough for displays and not for war. And of course, subsequently we got all the weapon systems and the rest of it that go with it. But I think it is a progression from so-called acquisition process that today we are acquiring it in a complete range of weapons as well as servicing, maintenance, anything that one can think of, and assured serviceability. But all this got to be paid for. But how much should it be paid for? And that's left to the negotiation committee.
Okay. Bharat Karnar, a spirited defense minister has said that Bofors brought Congress down, Rafale will bring Modi back to power. From the political brickring, you know, it seems that for every charge of Bofors that's hurled at the Congress party, there's going to be a similar Rafale or Chaukidar chor hai thrown right back at the BJP. Is the Rafale deal worth the political cost that the Modi government seems to be paying for?
Well, look, the fact is that anytime there is an arms deal, the government that has made the decision to go in for that particular weapon system finds itself embroiled in controversy. And there's always the attendant, suspicions and then allegations of, some kind of misdoings, financial malfeasance, commissions being paid out, etc. This is almost, seems inevitable every time there's a contract that's signed by the Indian government. Now that is because the procurement process, while at the level of shortlisting by the service in question, in this case the Indian Air Force, is fairly clear in the sense that the Indian military services are very rigorous in testing and in marking off the various merits of the system, etc. The actual final decision is still a political decision, and that's where invariably the controversy arises. Because if you recall, in the Bofors, it was not the Swedish item that was at the top of the list originally. It was the Austrian gun that was at the top of the list. However, by the time the decision was made, the government opted for the howitzer, the Swedish howitzer. And this is what happens. And where there is the suspicion that there's something wrong or something that has gone astray. Now, in this case, the problem, I think, is deeper. And I'm not now referring to any aspect of the corruption charges and counter charges, etc. I'm merely saying that can India afford another, and this is something that I've been talking about for years together, can we afford such a diversity of aircraft in our fleet? We have some, by last count, some 27 types of aircraft or something like that, some horrendous amount. It's a logistics nightmare. Now in war, that is compounded. And so one has to rationalize the force structure to have as few types of aircraft as possible, so you have a reasonable stockpile of spares and the service support. This is what has invariably tripped the Indian procurements up.
Okay.
Whether it's for this Air Force or for any other service.
Right, Mr. Karnar, we will discuss that in just a bit. We will revisit that topic, but let me just take it across to Mohammad Khan for now. Mohammad Khan, one major accusation also being made by the Defence Minister today was that the UPA was not serious about the deal and it put national security at risk for personal gains. How do you justify the failure to finalize the deal under the UPA?
Well, ma'am, that is a statement of opinion and not of fact. because we know from the documents available before us, the various file notings, etc., and one which we released to the public today morning at 10:30, senior Air Force officials stood with the old deal. Now, they try and mislead the public and say that the Congress dragged its feet. It didn't. It followed procedure, and procedure takes a certain amount of time. We did not interfere when the Air Force was testing this and the Eurofighter Typhoon, that is the Rafale jet versus the Eurofighter Typhoon. Once they made their decision, we started the DPP process as is enshrined under the rules. That is where one of our biggest criticism comes from, Modi ji, that when you went and made the announcement in France, the Cabinet Committee on Security had not met. Mr. Parker himself was inaugurating a fisheries project that day. And when a channel asked him about the announcement, he said he had no clue. And it was retrospectively acquired, something that is also clear from the Supreme Court's decision. Now, I want to come quickly to something that Zafar Islam Sahab said. Sir, you and your colleagues are relying again and again on the Supreme Court decision and saying that we are disrespecting the Supreme Court by asking questions on it. Sir, you disrespected the Supreme Court by misleading it. And as Mr. Jaitley said on the floor of Parliament yesterday, once can be happenstance, twice can be an accident, third time is a conspiracy. You've made 3 errors in the judgment in the sealed envelope you submitted it in. You lied about the fact that a CAG report had been prepared, something which you rushed to later say was a typographical error. You lied about the fact that the Ambanis were involved since 2012. That was Mukesh Ambani and this is Anil Ambani. But you misled the court about that arrangement. That is the word used in the judgment. And the third thing you did was, you said there was no serious work that had been done with HAL. HAL had multiple agreements. The Foreign Secretary's statement is on record saying it's at the final stages. The CEO of Dassault came down to their factory and in the presence of a senior Air Force official announced their plans for what was to come ahead. Sir, that is why we are asking for a JPC. And the very fact, your reluctance, no matter how much you think we relish this, we don't. We are sad because the Rafale is indeed a fantastic aircraft. That's why we chose it. And you have turned this entire proceeding into a mockery just so you can benefit your crony capitalist friends. Okay. And if that crony capitalist friends had some qualifications in this sector, you might well have had a case. But that person has no qualifications by his own record.
Okay, Syed Zafar Islam, please do respond to that. And you know, yeah, Mr. Islam, if I can just ask you, please do respond to that, and also just keeping the pricing and, you know, controversy over awarding a portion of the offset to Anil Ambani, you know, let's keep that aside. You've also been repeatedly asked time and again about why only 36 Rafale jets were asked for when the requirement was 126 by the Air Force. We haven't heard anything on that.
See, first of all,
yes,
the Congress party is time and again, I'm repeating again for the sake of repeating, that they are somehow criticizing the Honorable Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has gone through the entire process. What did they ask? The Honorable Supreme Court asked the process which has been adopted by the Government of India in terms of acquiring these 36 aircraft. And the entire process they have gone through and they have found it absolutely in order. Whether it's the approval was in place or not, that's something which they have already checked in. These people are making allegation when the Honorable Prime Minister or the government officials at that point in time have only expressed their intent that they would want to buy the aircraft. But when we placed the order, all the approval was in place, and with that approval, that the government of India went ahead for acquiring 36 aircraft. Now, the question is that when these questions have been always put to the Honorable Supreme Court, they have verified it. Now they are making allegation that we have whatever information we have provided in a sealed envelope was something which was different than what is in the public domain, what these people are talking about. See, the sealed envelope, the information was confidential. It is provided in the sealed envelope, and these people are making this kind of a statement without knowing what has been provided to the Honorable Supreme Court. Let the Honorable Supreme Court make that a statement. They have already given, the Supreme Court has given verdict that everything was found in order, and they followed the process which the government needed to follow. And this kind of a baseless allegation, what is being made by somebody, is only with the intent of malifying and giving a bad name to the government. But the fact is that for 7 or 8 years, they were sitting on this file. They could have acquired it if they were comfortable with the aircraft, they were comfortable with the salt as a company. Then why did they take 7 years to negotiate? Okay. Purely because they were looking for a middleman every time They have all the defense transaction, they always had a middleman. This transaction, they were not having middleman and they were looking for one.
Okay.
Because of that, they could not conclude the transaction. Otherwise, what was the restriction on them? There was no restriction, except they were looking for a middleman.
Okay. Air Chief Marshal
They are
Krishna
very
Swamy.
fond of accepting bribe.
Right. Air Chief Marshal Krishna Swamy, you know, the Indian Air Force has been crying hoarse
I
about
just want to say one sentence.
Yes, just give me a minute, Mohammed. Let me first ask the Air Chief my question. Right. So, Mr. Krishnaswamy, I was saying that the Indian Air Force has been crying hoarse about the threat from China and Pakistan. Our fleet is aging, you know, the MiG-21Bs are completing their shelf life. Tejas is yet to replace them. Do you think that 36 Rafale jets, arguably the most potent in the world, are enough to ward off any threats that might be on the horizon?
Yes, you know, our requirements were given as 126, which was said that during our discussion. For whatever the good reasons, the government decided to restrict for the time being to 36. So, as far as the file is concerned, it is 126. And how 126 came out to be 36 is my personal conjecture is that there are 36 aircraft which are to be flyaway. 18 aircraft were to be initially directly assembled, made in France and flown down here. Another 18 are assembled in India and flown and given, and they have the same cost. And subsequently, after the 36, the rest of the 126, they were to be manufactured by HAL. So the price of 36 aircraft was known, that's I'm presuming so. And therefore, they said, we'll just take only those flyaways. Now, the rest of this 100 and whatever the leftover, those have to be possibly freshly negotiated or whatever. I'm not personally, I won't know about the contract as such, but I'm presuming.
All right.
So therefore, and now I see that Air Force has requested a projection for 114 more aircraft.
Yes.
And requests for RFI have been sent globally. So obviously the numbers are coming to of that kind of a number.
Okay. Mohammed Khan, you wanted to come in and you were saying something. Mohammed, please, but do keep it crisp, please. I have one last question for Bharat. Yeah.
I only have one sentence.
Yes.
I only have one sentence. If everything you say is true and above board, then why did Mr. Francois Hollande, who has no dog in the fight, come out and say that you, our Prime Minister, compelled him to take Reliance Anil Ambani as an offset partner? Answer me that question. That's all I have to say.
All right. Okay. Mr. Islam, would you like to respond to that?
See, I will not give credence to the ex-president of France, what he said, but that has been clarified by the embassy, the embassy of France here, and very clearly they have stated that the offset partner is something, the discretion lies with the SAL and not with the government of India. They can choose any offset partner they want to choose. And they have chosen Reliance purely because that discretion lies with them, and it is nothing to do with us. And we have not played any role. We repeatedly said that we have no role to play in selection of any offset partner because that obligation has to be made by the SAL, and that is something which they have this discretion and they have exercised it as well.
All right, fair enough. Bharat Karnad, my last question to you, and you know, no matter which way we try to steer the discussion, it's always sort of back to political battles, irrespective of the cost, a cost for the country's defense preparedness. Is this really the biggest takeaway that we're going to, you know, walk away with in this Rafale row?
Well, look, if by that you mean that eventually the country is saddled with, you know, whatever, you know, weapon system the government of the day chooses to buy, then that's one way of looking at it. The better metric, I think, for a country that does not have a surfeit of resources, financial and otherwise, is to alight on a cost-effective option. And that's not what we have done. I think the previous Defence Minister, Manohar Parrikar, was, you know, favouring the idea of buying more Su-30s. If you upgrade the Su-30s in terms of, for instance, data fusion and so on, you would have a far better, more versatile aircraft than the Rafale would ever be. And when you know, the champions of Rafale talk about the ordnance in terms of the Meteor air-to-air missile or the Scalp air-to-ground missile and so on, what is often forgotten is that these are brochure kind of performance metrics rather than in real terms. In actual battle, the kill zone is almost no more than 50 miles at most, that you can be certain of a kill. Anything beyond that is just advertisement. And this is the sort of thing that's never told the people. So when you say that the Meteor, missile is so fine and so good, then that is, as you say, that's buying into the advertisement for the weapon system. And finally, the 36 aircraft that you buy are actually operationally too few to make a difference in war. And also because these are so valuable, these are unlikely to be used in time of in hostilities. And that's the irony of it, that you don't have enough of them to deploy in action in mass.
All right, gentlemen, I'm afraid we're completely timed out. Saeed Zafar Islam, Mohammad Khan, Bharat Karnad, and of course, Air Chief Marshal S. Krishnaswamy. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking the time out and joining in this evening on the India Development Debate.